All right, we'll get started. We'll just consider last night our practice run. So you guys are going to get the perfectly rehearsed version. Kristen, before I get started, can you hear me?
Yep. There's some
Good.
sound in the background. It sounds like maybe you got some work going on outside.
It's actually my heater.
Oh.
I don't know why we need the heat on at 75-degree day, but it is.
Okay, it's off now.
Yeah, that'll come on intermittently. So our norms for today instead of tonight is just we always go to our View Ridge values, and it's always a good reminder to always be kind, safe, responsible, and respectful. Your children know these 4 value words very well. We connect them with all of the areas of our school, and we talk about how to be kind, safe, responsible, and respectful in the hallways, in the lunchroom, in meetings, and everywhere we go. And I promise to be all 4 of these things today. This meeting is being recorded for those who cannot attend. You could keep your cameras off. It helps with our bandwidth as we go through this. Keep yourself muted. We will have a chance for questions at the end, and you'll be able to unmute and chime in at that time. We have the chat room. You could use the chat bar for questions and just keep the comments positive. And I think that with so many things nowadays, we just have to expect non-closure. I will not be stopping for questions through the PowerPoint, so you could either just hold your questions till the end or put them in the chat bar, and we'll have someone monitoring the chat at the end. So first, it's just to let you know that I totally understand what you're going through as parents. This is Ryan Roos, my son, who is now 6th grade. And Ryan, I would say, is a pretty mediocre student. You know, he's very capable, and he struggles paying attention and staying focused. And so the struggles that we go through as parents, I can totally empathize with. And I was telling Ms. Eckert this morning, we were in a meeting together, and I had to mute and turn off my camera because I was managing a meeting and trying to manage Ryan online. And so I understand those struggles. And Ryan this morning just froze. At one point, he's in the kitchen when he's supposed to be in art, and I just said, Ryan, what are you doing down here? And he's like, well, I just couldn't get in. I said, well, you can't just give up. That would be like going in the hallway and saying, I can't find room 13, so I'm not going to art today. I said, you got to plow on. And so understanding all these dilemmas and these items that we're now dealing with that we've never had to deal with before, I totally get that. And it's very challenging and frustrating, and was just difficult to be in a meeting and manage this meeting that we were in, and then at the same time move over and have to work with my son. And as you know, I'm doing a little bit distance principling, and then I do some from the office as well. It's about half and half right now. The office staff and I have split up our hours so that we all have a piece of the office time and still give each other the space that we need to social distance. So it's a little bit half and half. So I understand what you're going through. And here's the analogy, is that we're all trying to fly this plane, and we all have a piece of this. And we're spending a lot of time just trying to get all these pieces together. That's why I have weekly principal meetings with parents. I am talking to teachers on a daily basis. I'm checking in with classrooms. I'm observing classrooms. Last spring, we met with student government. We'll get student government getting up and going soon. So we'll hear from the students piece, but just trying to get all the pieces of this together. And it's been a challenge, but we're getting there, and we appreciate hearing from families and getting the feedback so that we can grow our practice. Kristen Eckert, do you have access to the lobby, by the way? It keeps on pinging me.
I'm not seeing anything come up. Let me check.
Yeah.
Nope, it does not look like I do.
Huh, okay, I'll just have to go over there from every time. and let people in. That's fine. We'll get through it. Okay. Another thing is just like the teachers trying to juggle, or the staff really just trying to juggle all these different components of distance learning. And I would say that just historically, teachers are kind of laggards, or excuse me, staff are laggards in technology. And maybe I'd better even clarify as educators. Like, I think we get comfortable in the programs that we're currently using and how we're doing it. How would I say this? But in the most part, we're not really pushing through and being the innovators in technology. And now we're expected to be innovators in technology and leading the way with some software products that we have never seen before. And it takes us out of our comfort zone. I think we're very cozy in using the software products that are historically pretty educational friendly. And now we're being pushed way outside that comfort zone and having to use programs like Teams that we've never used before, or digging deeper into Schoology that some have used at different levels, and getting into Seesaw and all these other applications, and having to do with new computers, new iPads, and new laptops for students. It's really pushing us to a whole new level of technology that we have not reached before. And it's really outside of our comfort level. But at the same time, the staff are really embracing it and doing a fantastic job with it. We're certainly dealing with bandwidth issues. So if you are in a meeting or a class and you get dropped, it's most likely just to deal with the fact that the bandwidth just got to be too much. All the different software products that are coming along. I mentioned some earlier. We've got more on the way and trying to figure out how to get those loaded on. So doing everything remotely and having to use technology is to this level is really pushing us to a whole new level. And just the capacity of us to learn all these new products and do it effectively has been a challenge. And the other part is that we're still learning. We had, for example, Seesaw training just days before we had to get started. And so really a lot of it is just learning by trial and error, getting started somewhere, and then just growing from that point and trying to push ourselves every week. And we do have our early release Wednesdays. We have one tomorrow, which is dedicated mostly to technology and having these working sessions with our new technology. And so we are learning and growing and pushing ourselves outside of our comfort zone more than we ever have before. These are just examples of schedules. Teachers are supposed to be sending out their weekly schedules to you. This is typically what I see as a nicely color coordinated. It's not mandatory that it be color coordinated, but you should be seeing a weekly schedule. This one touches on how we have the social emotional blocks on each side. So we have the opening of the day for 30 minutes with social emotional learning, and then wrap it up at the end of the day with another social emotional piece as well. And the social emotional piece is really critical right now. We'll talk more about that. I have a whole slide dedicated to what we're doing for that. These two terms have really come to the forefront, and I want to make sure that you understand what we mean by these, because these come up in everyday conversation with educators now, and they did not last year. While we may be familiar with these terms, these are really just the core of what we're doing now. So the synchronous, when we talk about synchronous, we're talking about live instruction with the teacher. So that's where they are typically on Teams and teaching a lesson. This year our goal is to have the teaching and instruction mirror what we traditionally would do in schools. We've talked a lot about do what you typically do in your school day, just think of a way you could do it remotely. So if you historically like to teach on a whiteboard and give your examples on a whiteboard, how are you going to do that in a remote setting? if you historically use a document camera to show what you're doing on paper, how are you going to do that remotely? And again, it's been pushing us with our learning and our technology and everything else that we're learning. The asynchronous, this is work that's done without a teacher. So after you give a synchronous live lesson, which might be the mini lesson, a whole group lesson, typically a lesson goes into the asynchronous portion where you are assigning the work, and this might be an independent reading. You've talked about the reading lesson for the day, and then you ask the kids to start reading and perhaps journaling what they're reading. And it can also be some of the software products we have, like IXL or RazKids. So this is the work that's done without the teacher, and they sometimes are embedded within each other. So you may have a synchronous block with asynchronous activities built in. So if in a synchronous block you are doing a reading lesson that takes 20 minutes, then in that same hour block, you would move into the asynchronous portion, which may be when the kids are doing the reading and the teacher is meeting with small groups synchronously. Here's the social emotional learning part. For social emotional learning, we mainly use what's called Ruler. Ruler is a program out of Yale University. It stands for Recognizing, Understanding, Labeling, Expressing, Regulation of Emotions, and it has 4 components. The first is the class charter. The class charter is starts with talking about how do you want to feel in your classroom this year, and then they come up with a charter of ways that they could get to feeling that way. So it might be listening for understanding, using kind words with each other. So kind of the rules of the classroom. The mood meter, all students are familiar with this. That's the one that has the quadrants, and the quadrant has the 2 axes are energy and pleasantness, and the kids plot how they're feeling for the moment. And if they're feeling kind of in the mellow, if they're in what's called blue, green, or yellow, we're good with that. If they are in the red, then we coach them a little bit on how they can get out of the red. If they're one of the other quadrants, we could ask them, do you want to stay in the blue, or are you good with this right now? If they say, yeah, I'm happy, I'm just a little bit sad that this, that, or another thing happened, but I'm going to get through it on my own, then we just can let them stay there. But if they're in the red and angry about something, or really upset and agitated, we'll coach them in the moment to help them get to another quadrant. The meta moment, this is about self-regulating your emotions. So if something happens to you and you get a little bit agitated, the next step is to talk yourself into stopping. We do talk about the kids just having this recording in their head that is telling themselves, all right, just chill. It's not that big of a deal. I'm going to work through this. Take some deep breaths. All right, now let's see myself. How do I want this situation to end? What's my best self here? And then they come up with a strategy of taking some deep breaths or whatever their strategy may be. And maybe it's talking it out. At this point, we usually talk to the kids about looking at the Kelso's choice wheel, which is a wheel of multiple choices, such as talk it out, share and take turns, ignore the problem, walk away from the problem. So they have some options for strategizing. And then lastly is just to be successful with that. And after the meta moment, we have a blueprint. A blueprint is like a conflict resolution where the kids go through a situation that they may be in, and with some coaching from the teacher, we'll walk them through the steps on how to do the conflict resolution. We're also using community circles, community building games and activities, affinity groups, and then we wrap up the day with some kind of an optimistic closure or connecting with families as well. So we're hitting social emotional learning really hard this year because it's critical. Families and students are going through a lot of stress right now, And as the adults go through stress, it flows onto the kids and they feel it as well. And so getting that check-in piece for them to talk about their feelings and their emotions and helping them through that is critical this year. Okay, we'll talk about our two core blocks, which would be ELA and math. ELA is generally two parts. The first half, you generally have a live synchronous teaching, so that might be a making meeting, being a writer, a vocabulary lesson. And then the second half moves into independent work, which I talked about earlier, and that could be the independent daily reading, the IDR, or some individual writing time. And this is also a time when teachers can pull small groups or work one-on-one if necessary. Math, very similar. Starts out with a live lesson and then moves into the independent work, which can be digital work with IXL or some workbook work or the old paper and pencil if necessary. This is just an example. The teachers do have independent work, small groups on their schedules. They typically just break it up into different groups, and they'll pull small groups while the other groups are working asynchronously on an activity. And then they just rotate their groups as they need. So the teacher platforms, kind of think of this as the teacher's inbox and outbox. It's the way that they communicate with families and students. And so on their platform, you might find their schedules. You should find their schedules. They have activities that they can search and find. They might have writing. Let me back up a little bit. For students, they can engage in learning through the writing, taking pictures, recording videos, or recording their own thinking on the platforms as well. Families, it's an easy way for you to communicate with the teacher and provide encouragement to your own child's learning. A big question is why Teams and not Zoom? It was a district decision. At the time that they made this decision, there were a lot of security issues with Zoom. I do believe that Zoom has worked through a lot of those since, but at the time that they made this decision, Zoom was having some struggles. Teams aligns with Office 365. It's compatible with Linguistica for translations. And Teams is quickly working to get teachers what they need. So I had mentioned earlier today that we have a personal relationship with Microsoft Teams. We have a person from that team who works with the district, and changes happen quickly. I think that Teams has been extremely responsive to our needs, and they're building their program as we go along. I know that even as last spring, when we first started to use it, they didn't have a hand-raising feature. We brought that up, and within days, they had a hand-raising feature. Within a couple weeks, they had increased the number of students you could see on the screen at one time. And so they are constantly being responsive to our needs. And yesterday, when we did have an outage at Microsoft, we were able to get the Teams person to work with us and get that resolved as quickly as we could. We are working on getting these software products. They have been ordered, and we're working on the approval process through the district to get them compatible with the iPads and the laptops. So Splash Learn is a math program with real-time reports, customized learning, and it is Common Core aligned. Reading A to Z is a vast library of just right books. It has lessons and activities as well. Reading Eggs is more of a phonics-based program, and it has quizzes for parents and the teacher to view. And then IXL we've been using for math. It does have a reading program which they gave to us for free last year. I don't know if they'll do that this year, but we've been using it for math, and it is also linked to the Common Core standards. Attendance. So the following policy is good through October 5th. And our goal for attendance right now is not for truancy, but rather to support families in connecting to remote learning. School starts every day at 8:30. Teachers will take attendance in the morning. And attendance is flexible because we know there's a lot of complexity of the varying needs of families. And students are considered to be in attendance if at any time during the day they engage in the synchronous and or asynchronous learning activities. So we've been really flexible with attendance at this point, and this policy is good through October 5th. We have not had an update of what it will look like after October 5th, but currently our attendance is pretty close to 100%. And for the students who have been struggling getting online, we've been working with those families directly, including doing some safe home visits to make sure that their technology and everything is up and running. So all we really need is just to get kids in front of the computer. Everyone in our school has the technology they need to do distance learning. And then teachers make changes to the attendance at the end of the day. Excused absences are extended to families who are experiencing illness, parent or guardian conflicting work schedules, and online connectivity issues. We ran into all of those. And during our principal coffee, Megan Flaherty was mentioning that if you do have some technical issues that prevent you from being online, just let your teacher know, because that is considered an excused absence. Okay, special education and 504s, IEP and 504 plans will be implemented and followed during remote learning. 504s, typical is during remote learning, the teacher and the 504 coordinator, Kristen Eckert, will meet to determine what accommodations are needed. Many typical 504 accommodations may not be relevant during distance learning. I could think of some of the assessment accommodations, such as being able to take assessments in small groups. They'll have that capability, just doing that from home. And then IEPs, the case managers will be holding IEP meetings for all students. And we're checking to see if we need to make modifications for remote learning. And the timeline is to finish all of these by mid-October. So as you might imagine, our special ed staff is swamped right now getting through all of these IEPs and updating them. When will we return to school? Nothing will happen until we are in phase 3. And there's just so many variables, as you might imagine, as we think about when we will go back. I can say the district has not mentioned any plans as of this moment for in-person teaching. And some of the factors are, we have some high-risk employees who are also essential workers, and they won't be able to return to work. And that does include some teachers, administrators, bus drivers, custodians, and lunchroom staff across the district, because they might be in that over 65, or they might have some pre-existing conditions. So staffing is an issue. And we know that we're coming up in the cold and flu season. That's going to be very challenging, because once cold and flu season hits, some kids end up with coughs and runny noses all year. They have them for months, and those are reasons why students would not be allowed in the building if you have that nagging cough or some cold or flu symptoms. So trying to figure out whether it's cold, flu, allergies, or COVID is going to be a serious challenge. The capacity, of course, it's difficult to get all the students in the building at the same time while maintaining social distancing. So the district has come in and placed all the desks, or not all the desks, but 15 desks in each room, which are 6 feet every which way you can reach 6 feet. So to each side, back, forwards. And so they're all 6 feet apart. And I had mentioned earlier as well that we the district has come in just to check and make sure our building is ready for in-person, because we don't know when it's going to happen. So they've come in, gone through our building, interviewed me to see our readiness, and then they did a walkthrough in the building and just took notes. But we're ready for it. We just don't know when it's going to come. But if it happens quickly, our classrooms are set up, our hallway is set up. There'd be a few minor tweaks we'd have to make, but we're ready for it. There hasn't been any plans put forward on what they would do, but it could happen in like what Pierce County is doing, where they have special ed and kindergarten students, or what they had planned previously was that we'd have an A-B schedule. We have A students come on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday is a disinfecting day, and then B students come on Thursday, Friday. And we don't know what that will look like at this time, but I just know that the district is preparing for it behind the scenes, and have been into every building to make sure that we are physically ready for it. So we are getting ready. We just have to wait for CDC's okay to move forward with that. Then, of course, we also want to make sure everyone is we're able to do it in a way that's healthy and safe for everyone, and preferably after they have a vaccine. But those are unknowns that are kind of out of our control. Okay, there are a lot of questions about what we could do for staff. The first thing I have on here is just don't forget about all staff. You know, teachers appreciate the feedback, but don't forget all of our specialists. So if your student is receiving some services from special ed, don't forget our special ed teachers, our occupational therapists, physical therapists, speech language therapists, our psych, our ELL teachers, our instructional assistants, our office staff, our custodians. All of them could use some positive feedback. And I think that right now the positive feedback is just so much appreciated by the staff. I've been in some emails going back and forth between staff and families with some positive emails, and the responses from the teachers have been, I'm going to hold on to this. You know, it's just so enlightening and nice to read that I'm going to read this every day over the next several weeks when they need a boost. So the positive feedback via email has just been so much appreciated. And then you could use some creativity. I know that if you know that the teacher's working on site, some families have come up and knocked on the windows and handed the teachers some coffee or snack. And then you could still deliver things to the school. We could put it in school mail for them to access later. But any kind of positive feedback right now goes a long ways. And just a quick email to thank them for what they've done means so much. I have been asking people to spread it out a little bit so we don't hammer them all tomorrow and then not do anything for a month. So think about them in another week or two. And then also just give them a little bit of space. We do want to hear from families. We're being encouraged to reach out and talk to every family. We are working through that. And your feedback is very important for us to all get on the same page and bring all the pieces of that plane together. And I also want to let you know that it's overwhelming right now, that teachers want to help, and to quote Kristen Eckert, they want to help you and they feel bad when they can't. And so for technology issues, I'd like to encourage you to go through the tech support through the district, which I put links on every Roost report every Friday. They're a little bit slow right now because I think they're overwhelmed, but they're working through that. They're staffing up a little bit. So we're working through that as a district, but use them first because we don't really have the capacity in the building to do tech support. Our teachers are not tech support experts. It's chewing up a lot of their time, and it's just been really stressful. And so give them some space. If you have some constructive feedback, look for patterns. Like, is it something that's happening regularly and a quick note would fix that? Or do you think it's just something that's a one-shot deal that will probably fix itself over a day or so? And they just have an abundance of patience. We, as I had mentioned earlier, are just really building our capacity to be these innovators in technology and pushing our brains further than we ever have before. And so let us go through this process of learning and growing with this, and we'll get there. The PTA is also working on getting room parents up and going. We're hoping to include a technical contact, so if you are interested, please reach out to the PTA. But that would be extremely helpful if we had technical contacts per classroom to help brainstorm some of the issues that we're running into. With that said, that concludes my presentation portion. We could go back and check the chat. If you have questions, you could put them in chat. You can raise your hand, and we will try to get all of the questions answered. Ms. Eckert, what does chat look like?
We don't have any questions in the chat.
While you're putting your questions in chat or using the raise your hand feature, I just want to apologize again for last night's meeting. We got a notice from district right around 2:45 that Microsoft was having some issues. It did affect my team's presentation. I tried to create a new Teams under their guidance and recommendation, and it just didn't work very well. So all night, I think it was frustrating with parents trying to get in and not being able to see anything. So I apologize for that. I am recording this presentation, and I'll send that out after we're done with this. So, and other than that, I just want to thank everyone for your compassion and your patience and your support. We've been getting a lot of great feedback, a lot of constructive feedback. It's helping us grow. And so I want to just once again thank the parents for your support and all that you do. It's just been so greatly appreciated. So thank you so much. If you have questions, you could put them in chat. You can use the raise your hand feature, or you could just unmute yourself and speak up.
Can you talk a little bit about the end of the day piece, the kind of social, emotional, family connection at the end of the day? So
Sure. So our
classes, I think, are ending at 2. So I guess I just want a better understanding of what that looks like.
Yeah, our goal is to have just a social-emotional sandwich. So we start the day with 30 minutes in the morning, and at the end, a lot of that is just making family connections at this point. So the teachers are reaching out to contact every family to see what your needs are, and that format can vary depending on the teacher, but some of them are doing the just phone calls, some are doing it by email. But just reaching out to connect with families is what we're working on now. But we want to just start the day with the strong social-emotional learning, which is typically done in class meetings, and then at the end of the day, wrapping it up with contacting families, or maybe ending with a class meeting. And it's going to vary per teacher because some teachers have their planning period at the end of the day, so they wouldn't be able to do it right up till 3 o'clock. They might be in PE or art, music, library. But that's our goal, is to have the social emotional learning sandwich where we start the day and then end the day on a positive note as well.
And is there capacity to, if, I've just heard some themes from parents in my child's grade around kids struggling with certain big and heavy emotions, especially as school goes on. Would that be something that we could reach out to the counselor about? And
Absolutely.
Is there going to be any groups happening to connect kids outside of classroom?
Yeah, thank you. As a matter of fact, so Joyce Cho is our counselor. She just recently sent an email out to teachers saying that she's starting her small groups, and the small groups can be referred by the teachers. So if you feel like you have a child who could use some small group work with the counselor, you may want to reach out to the teacher. You can reach out to Joyce Cho. You can let me know, and then we'll do a form, an intake form for Joyce that includes getting the parents' permission.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up. We do have a counselor. She does a fantastic job. And so she will be doing, again, like I've asked the teachers to do, is just thinking about what you do typically in the year. So she does push-in lessons. She's done some anti-bullying lessons. We're doing a lot of family reach out right now, and family communications. And then she's slowly going to transition into more student groups here over the next week or two. Kristen, anything in chat?
Nope.
Okay.
This is Dan Sang. I had a question about the content over the course of the year. Is it, I guess, what is the district's approach toward what is being covered in the curriculum over the course of the semester and over the course of the year? And is there anything that we as parents should be doing to kind of keep our students on track? And I've asked the same question of Mr. Azer for Atticus, but I was curious what the district's approach is on that.
So your question is around how you can keep your kids on track?
Yeah, it's more about the amount of time that they're spending in class and whether they're going to cover the normal content that they would over the course of their school year in this year.
I can speak to this a little bit if you'd like.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead, and then I can add to that as well.
Yeah. Hi, Dan. This is Kristen Eckert, the assistant principal. And so the district has worked really closely with a couple of national organizations to really select all the standards and subsets under each standard, which ones we want to emphasize this year. And it's really very thoughtfully done. And it's being communicated out to teachers. Our first push in the fall is really getting the technology going and building the relationships. And then the second push will be communicating out the standards alignment. So that work is happening at a district level, and it's been really thoughtful. In terms of what parents can do, I think do what you're doing, which is really just keep working with the teacher to just, check in on your child. How are they doing with the learning concepts that are coming up? The teacher, might have some suggestions for things to review. But they're really going to be paying attention to the standards that have the broadest reach. And I've been pretty impressed with what I've seen.
Yeah, and I would just piggyback on that and say that the teachers also are meeting with their teams to talk about the power standards that they have to hit for the student to progress to the next stage of learning. So along with the standards that the district has put together, the teachers are also working with their grade level teams to decide which standards they need from grade to grade.
Okay, thank you. That's helpful.
Yeah. Anything in chat, Kristen?
No, sir.
Okay. Well, that might just be it. If you have more questions, I'm going to stick around until everyone's gone. Just to field any more questions that might be around, just feel free to unmute and speak up. You can also use the raise your hand feature so we could call on you or add it in chat. But thank you again for all of your support, your patience, your kind words. The feedback that we're getting is just greatly appreciated. So thank you so much for all you do. I'd like to also thank the PTA for coming in and cleaning up our grounds. So for everyone who came and participated in cleanup yesterday, thank you so much. It looks beautiful around here today. It's really nice to come to school and have it spotless. So greatly appreciated. Thank you, everyone. Have a good afternoon. Bye.